everyone, and welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome, and to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe and like to help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts, and tune in again next week. My name is Tu Li. I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, .substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Sticking around home for the rest of the year, Lei, but being a volleyball dad, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. Good morning to a traveling too. I know you're going to be busy traveling in the next week or so. I'm skipping, so sticking around. I'm definitely sticking around. And this is your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode 227. We're back after a brief hiatus. The government is back, thankfully. Hopefully those flights will be coming back. And I hope you didn't have to deal with when you traveled the week before. But
I did not. But
okay, good.
Florida traffic is not great. Yeah.
So my sister and brother-in-law, they had to drive to Wisconsin last week to visit my nephew
from
Massachusetts. Yeah, because they got affected by the flight delays. Anyways, the weekly sales numbers are not coming back. Staying on the back theme here. Maybe that's something that we can start off with, since it's already middle of the month, so the sales numbers have come out for October. There's been quite a few headlines. I'm sure you've seen many of those. One of those was Xiaomi U7 selling more than the Model Y in China. Eventually that was going to happen, but it happened. And then crazy numbers for all of the ones that are in the front running in the beginning of the pack, right?
Right.
Crazy numbers. And then we had the XPeng AI Day, which has gone viral with the robot for like a whole week. Still going viral, I think.
Yep.
Those are some of the things that we can discuss about. And then GM, we should mention GM, which is trying to do something that I'm not sure is possible, pulling out all of their suppliers, all of China, for outside of their supply.
Well, for North America.
For North America. So
we can talk about that, but one thing I wanted to mention, Lei, about October sales was that Tesla October sales, retail sales, was really, really low. I think 26,000 units. So maybe we are starting to see a pullback finally for Tesla sales. Now, if we peel the layers of the onion back, we know that they've been giving historically price cuts and then non-price cuts through the form of 0% financing, through the form of charging. So I think some of this competition, the U7, to your point, is really, really starting to wear on the Model Y in China.
Yeah, first of all, the weekly sales numbers, those are gone. I'm glad those are gone, because I never paid too much attention to those anyways. Other than, using them as marketing purposes, I never try to conclude anything from that, so I'm glad they're gone. And then we can focus on the monthly. Monthly, obviously, we have the seasonality part of it. especially with Tesla. So we still put a grain of salt on that early in the quarter. What happens in November, December, and so I hesitate to make too much conclusions, considering. I mean, we've been doing this for many years, and definitely they've been facing pressure. They're just chugging along, but it's difficult to see them growing like Leapmotor, like XPeng, like Neo, with lack of really true new products. And eventually, it was just a matter of time that a U7 surpasses Model Y. So I don't make too much of it at this moment. But I do know in the US, trying every which way to entice, me included. Right, you mentioned about the free supercharger.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to wait until the last minute and see what happens. Because I get a call every other day from the sales associate. And it's end of the year. I also received the mail in the letter from Hyundai, which is willing to give me over $20,000 to trade in this one for a new Hyundai. And right, I think people are just trying to make sure they keep you as a customer. That's all there is. And then you make your decision, right? For me, I'm just standing my ground. I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of my view again. Yeah.
Yeah. There was an article in Electric that talked about some of the misleading headlines about EV sales falling off a cliff. So let me go through some numbers really quickly. Globally, through October, EV sales are up 23% year on year. In the EU, they're up 32%. In the United States, they're up 4%. So let's say that's flat. But in the rest of the world, they're up 48%. And if we look at export numbers from China, we're seeing that huge growth in exports from China. And a lot of it is from a Chery, from an SAIC, from a BYD. So that growth in EVs is largely due to Chinese EVs being exported to foreign markets. I don't see too many foreign legacy players that have runaway hits. And we also have to remember that the Model Y ships out from Shanghai Giga. So that is included in some of those export numbers for China. But what I do expect to see is that after October, November, December, yes, the NEV sales or the EV sales will taper off quite significantly. But to your point, Lei, there are incentives still in play through the end of this year, likely, to try to combat some of that sales falling off a cliff, because they still have capacity. There's probably a lot of oversupply on battery cells because those orders were put in 6 months ago. So they still need to build electric vehicles. They can't just start canceling things, although the GMs and the Volkswagens and Mercedes, Porsches are doing everything they can to try to mitigate some of that overcapacity on the EV side. So it's going to be a mess on the balance sheets for a lot of the legacy automakers through the end of this year. And hopefully, with GM and the Bolt and a few other, products, the Equinox, they should still see decent sales from those products because they're at such a competitive price point in North America. And the tariff uncertainty, the USMCA still not being renegotiated, that is going to add to a lot of that uncertainty. And we should talk about, Lei, what you had mentioned earlier about GM communicating to their suppliers. Can you expand on that? And let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, this was reported by Reuters, right? In that article, about trying to get all of their kind of the supply base back. Reshoring, I guess, is the one word that we can think about by the end of 2027. I think that was a timeline that was given. Uh, uh, it's I mean, it was a bit shocking to see that, especially it is still a global game, right? And then, but it has become more regional, more because of the U.S. China. What's happening with Nexperia, the influence of the U.S. on the rest of the world in the global supply chain. But I don't know. I mean, you're the expert here. I mean, you work in the supply chain. I question whether that will ever happen to do it. I mean, that,
So they've spent 20 years, 30 years trying to get more components, raw materials from China. And the OEMs didn't force their suppliers to do that, but they tacitly forced them through pushing price cuts, onto the suppliers, right? Where they need to do cost downs, glide path to cost downs. And so this kind of tells me that GM doesn't see this trend changing in the long term, or at least the short term. So it wasn't some official notice from General Motors or the sourcing and supply chain team. It was Mike Colias from Reuters, as you had mentioned, wrote an article that effectively said de-China your supply chain. And when we say de-China, when I say de-China, meaning, so if I'm General Motors and you supply seats to me, Lei, it's your sourcing. Where are you getting the foam from? Where are you getting the cut and sew? Where are you getting the tracks from? Where are you getting the control units from? And then pushing that to figure out, okay, do I have an alternate source for this control unit that I currently source from China? And the real constraints are, do they have alternate sources in Europe or the United States that don't have Chinese supply higher up in the supply chain, number one. Number two, at the quality level and at the pricing that they need it to be in order to not become out of whack on the pricing side, because GM is also not going to accept, okay, if I take China out, this piece cost for the seat that you're shipping me, Lei, you tell me that it increased by 20%. GM's not going to take that either. Suppliers are in a really, really, really precarious position. And the fact of the matter is, let's say, for instance, 40% of all seats, 30%, and I'm making up this number. I don't know what the exact number is, but 30 or 40% of all seats are built in China. If you take that supply chain out now, but we have the same amount of demand, what's going to happen? Price is going to go up. So, and this is a North America thing too, so it's not a rest of the world thing. If there are legacy tier ones and tier twos in China building, they're still probably going to ship those to Europe. And so there's going to be two separate sourcing strategies, which for some OEMs is kind of part and parcel in normal business, but for others is who want global reach and economies of scale, this is going to be challenging.
Yeah, so it's going to be more of a headache for the upstream suppliers because they have to deal with their upstream suppliers. So it's not really a GM, right? That's what you're pointing to. Yeah, which is difficult, puts everybody at a bind, right?
And if GM is doing this, you better believe that every other OEM is also doing this. And for companies like Volkswagen who build here, Mercedes who builds here, BMW who builds here, it's really different than what their European strategy is, probably.
Yeah, I mean, for these ones that want to still be relevant, and they're, like I said, right, they're going deeper and deeper into the China ecosystem to survive and to be successful. GM's doing that. Volkswagen's doing that. BMW, Mercedes. I think the Japanese are definitely doing that.
And we should
It's such
remember,
a huge contrast, right? Um,
and at a time where Porsche is very vulnerable, we should point back to that boat that got stopped in Miami with Audis and Porsches in it because there was a Chinese component. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars worth of inventory, hundreds of millions of dollars, I think, of inventory of vehicles, finished vehicles that were stuck at a port because it used a component from China that was restricted for entry into the United States. So the threat is real.
Yeah, and then Porsche. Speaking of Porsche, right? They open up their China R&D hub, even though they're not producing in China, which tells you the importance of if you want to be successful in the local market, you don't have to localize. What I'm trying to say is you don't have to be localized in order to localize. Right? They needed to do that because they needed to bring these features into the vehicles that they're launching imported. And then you have Volkswagen, which is localizing China, and they're even localizing more. And they want to do their own SoC with the help of Horizon Robotics and with their joint venture.
Which is this is what let's unpack that for a second, because the Volkswagen brand vehicles, certain Volkswagen brand vehicles, will now in 26 and beyond use the Turing chip.
Yep, that's their first foreign customer announced by XPeng.
So
right?
This Caria joint venture with Horizon will also have a different chip. So there's going to be a layered approach from Volkswagen Group in usage of the AI chip. And we also have to remember Qualcomm is already in play. NVIDIA is already in play. So we're talking 4 different pieces of silicon now. Now, Qualcomm is specifically for infotainment, but for an example is the Shenzhen chip by NIO. It's going to replace the Orin chip or the Thor chip and then the Snapdragon. And so it's going to get really messy really quickly if Horizon can, in fact, design silicon. SMIC can, in fact, fab that silicon, because NVIDIA and Qualcomm are going to be the odd man out on a lot of that stuff.
And that's almost like it's almost in relation to GM trying to pull out the supplier base. It's almost like the other way around, that we needed to be in China, not only depending on the local, not the established players, but the new players like XPeng and Horizon Robotics. But at the same time, we needed to do something on our own. Still murky at this point because they're going to have, 2 chips? One develop on their own and one using Xpeng's Turing. Okay.
I don't know why they would do that, but it seems odd. Now, you play devil's advocate, Lei. Why does that make sense?
Well, I think from the point of view of the Wei Xiaoli, all of them except Li Auto haven't taped out yet. They're all going to do their own chips. So Volkswagen is simply acting like, I'm a new startup in China. I'm the next NIO. I'm the next XPeng. And I also need to do my own chips. Maybe moving that earlier into the development process of their next generation EVs.
But are we...
yeah.
Should we assume that Volkswagen brand in China will
Volkswagen
use XPeng?
Brand. It's mostly Volkswagen brand,
Only?
from my understanding, yes.
And then Porsche, Audi, some of the other brands, Bentley, will use the Horizon Cariad silicon. Is that the
That
ultimate
is not
goal?
clear at this point.
Right.
But I know what XPeng announced in their VLA 2.0 and the Touring, that's for Volkswagen brand only. With respect to Volkswagen's own SoC, that's not clear yet. I don't think they explicitly said which brand is going to be used. That's not clear.
And on the other side of the pond, I was unable to attend, but RJ Scaringe had a media event where he did a fireside chat with Joanne Muller, who's the Axios automotive journalist, and he said that Volkswagen and Rivian are moving deeper into their collaboration. So Volkswagen is really, really relying heavily on third parties to get them into the 21st century with regards to connected and intelligent driving systems, connected vehicles and intelligent driving systems. Is that beneficial? Is that short-sighted? Is that going to put them in a bind? Because if I rely heavily on Lay Motor Company's intelligent driving and software and hardware stack, am I ever going to be fit enough to build my own? You would argue maybe not, but it's interesting.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Jim Farley, he was in the headlines because of this teardown of Model 3 compared to the Mach-E, and he found out the length of the wire harness, how long that was compared to...
It's like a mile or something
right,
like that.
Right, yeah. And then you think about what Volkswagen is doing with Rivian. I think they announced that they're actually currently testing proof of concepts with different branded models within the Volkswagen Group in anticipation for, I think, 2027 launch.
Yes. So they are going to be launching a $30,000 truck in 27, right on the heels of Slate Motor or Slate Auto launching their analog sub $30,000 truck. So there's going to be pain in 26 and 27 for most automakers. I think GM could be the bright spot for the North American automakers, because I think they're really, really hopeful that the Bolt will be a hit for them. The Equinox and the combination of the Equinox being a sub $40,000 car, and then the Bolt also launching in early 26. They're hoping that that'll stem the tide until they can get more affordable vehicles, but also the Escalade IQ in 2028 that has level 3 autonomy.
Eyes off. Yeah.
Hands off, eyes off. Yep. But let's circle into XPeng's AI Day. And can you summarize some of the things that they talked about? Because
it's
the humanoid, the woman, the female-shaped humanoid sucked a lot of the air out of the room.
I called it the Iron Lady or Lady Iron or something.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to summarize because there's so much information from the AI Day, because that's their kind of the Neo Day, right? For
that's their Neo Day,
because the biggest thing they announced with this VLA, which will
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0, which will be the central kind of the system in all of their robots, autonomous driving, RoboTaxi, flying cars.
It's like Apple having a single operating system for Macs, iPhones, and everything else.
Yeah, and then I think obviously the Iron Lady was compared a lot.
中文怎么说?
Well, 中文 is iron. They don't have actually a Chinese name.
Here.
It's called iron.
Iron. No,
yeah,
okay.
They don't have a Chinese name. Just iron. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then
I
some
saw
of the
that.
RoboTaxi plans, right? They talked about 3. I think they're launching 3.
A 5, 6, and 7-seater?
Yeah.
Was it?
And then they announced this basically the Robo, right? There's the Max, Ultra, and Robo, which is a private L4 capable vehicle. And then that X9, right? That X9 RoboTaxi concept
with three.
With the what do you call it? The visors that can speak to you, right?
Yep.
Basically.
With the 3 Turing chips.
3 Turing chips. And then 4, I think they're gonna have 4 on the Robo, if I remember correctly.
3 Turing chips that have 2,250 tops.
Yeah. And then their valuation have gone up, or their stock price has gone up like by 25% or something. And they're trying to be centered as a what was the name? They're trying to be everything that Tesla is wanting to be. Not a traditional EV manufacturer, but a kind of a tech AI company, right? That's what they're this physical AI that they talked about.
Yeah, physical AI being used
embodied
to control and manage physical robots.
Yeah.
So, and then they also highlighted a museum that has their land cruiser and stuff like that.
Yeah, they also announced this new 898 tilt rotor, kind of the eVTOL. And then they're starting production of the aircraft carrier, right? Of that
land aircraft carrier, yes.
Yeah.
And they have 4,000 orders or 5,000 orders.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. In a lot of ways, they're out Tesla-ing Tesla.
Yeah, for now.
Who knows when Optimus goes into production? Who knows? Elon says it. Who knows about RoboTaxis? Tesla has not unveiled or launched any eVTOLs or land aircraft carriers. So, I mean, there's that. But
yeah, I mean, same for XPeng. I mean, there's certainly a level of hype there, I think. Their plates are definitely full, to say the least. Unlike a Neo or... I mean, Neo is not into robotics. Humanoid robots. At least not yet. Right? I mean, Neo is into phones, but nobody talks about the Neo phone anymore.
But, as you and I know, going to FE2, it's very automated with a lot of humanoid arms and things like that. So, Neo, in practice, uses a lot of robots for manufacturing. So,
yeah, I mean that's the kind of norm in factory automation these days. Xiaomi, same at the Xiaomi factory.
So Kevin Williams texted me from Inside EVs. He went to the XPeng event, and then he went.
Yeah,
to
I saw a video
that
was posted with some of the KOLs.
Yeah, he said that the 9X was actually really, really nice.
Or the X9?
Interior. Yeah, the Zeekr 9.
No, Zeekr 9X. Yeah, I mean, I was at the launch. Sure, yeah. I mean, it's the Rolls Royce, right?
So yeah. And then one other recent launch was the LS9.
The only thing I would say about the LS9 is it's the only model that has a heated floor.
Which makes sense because that's where the battery is.
Which makes sense because they're from south of Yangtze, and in South China there's no heat. There's no.
Oh yes.
So people put in a heated floor in their rooms, in their house, in their apartments.
Yes. Normally, heated rooms and heated homes are like in Utah and in Denver for like skiing and stuff like that. It's very luxury. But what do you think of the LS9? Because it's got a 1,600 kilometer range, I want to say, which is like 900 miles. It has a 64 kilowatt hour battery. And so we're talking next level battery packs for an E-Rev.
I lost count, right? It's these many of these nines that are coming that are trying to just have more features that tops the one that came before it. And LS9 is one of them.
For the newbies who have only recently started following the automotive industry, the 9 represents for the Chinese companies anyways, their flagship vehicle. So whenever you hear 9X, LS9, it's normally going to be a large SUV or a large sedan.
And the only
BMW, go ahead.
The only way to top that is to add an additional L. Case in point, the M9 seems to be coming out with an M9L.
So it adds a meter and a half, 2 meters of
and Li Auto supposedly come out with the newer, larger SUV, and we still have the ES9 from NIO yet to launch.
We're getting into American sizes for cars.
Yeah.
In China.
Yeah.
And so I think those are going to be semi-popular in tier 1 cities, but it'll still be hard to get those big boats around in some of the lower tier cities, especially when there's the traffic that we know the lower tier city have. And we'll always go to a lower tier city and probably see one or two, because there might be some Tuhao that wants to own these big boats so they can show off in the lower tier cities. But so Lei, since you're fluent, can you tell our audience what a Tuhao is?
Tuhao, the best English translation I can think of is Beverly Hillbillies. For those that understand the American idioms, I think that's probably the best way to. It just means they're bloody rich. They're dirt rich.
Yeah, normally from like coal or something like that. And they wear a lot of brands. And what's funny is that our friends at Jing'e, you've been there a bunch of times now. Yeah. They have a beer called Tuhao Pills. Oh. So it is a pills, and yeah, it's one of my favorite beers. But it's all about making fun of some of these things that we hear, that we've heard. But yeah, anyways, anything. Let's do this, because we're gonna have a year-end show in the next month. But is there anything going on through the end of this year? Any events? Because NIO Day is not going to be happening in December now.
It already
happened in September. Yeah. Are there any other events in China that I can't think of any?
Not any major ones that we can think of, but certainly the fireworks are never stopping, right? And we can talk about. I mean, Li Auto just announced 14 of their employees got disciplined due to the recent fire on the Mega, and also some quality issues involving the new 2025 L series front suspension. So there's some quality issues, and they just announced some of these employees are they've been disciplined. That's one.
This is a signal to the media, the market, the Chinese government, that they're doing something about what happened with the Mega.
Yeah, lacking this final kind of the conclusion on what exactly happened. Even though they've recalled, right, 11,000 Megas, and then yet we I mean, these things still happen on a not day to day, but I think there was another fire involving a Xiaomi. But I mean, and
the last thing we can talk.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The recent regulations also. I mean, speaking of not coming back, the zero mileage, they're probably not coming back exports, because several departments just announced specific regulations requiring if the cars are registered less than 180 days, and if you want to export these cars, you have to have special permit and certification. This was just announced today. Just trying to rein in some of the practices that's been scrutinized globally.
The last thing that I want to bring up to you, Lei, is there was a Wall Street Journal article this week where a Western journalist from the Wall Street Journal got into a Baidu. And
we should talk about the RoboTaxi. Yeah.
So we're going to pat ourselves on the back. I'm going to pat you on the back, and I'm going to pat myself on the back because we've been doing this since 2021, 2019, actually. I've tested RoboTaxis in China since 2019, 2018, I want to say.
Yeah, 2019. I mean, you and I both were on the early versions of WeRide, I believe, using the Lincoln MKZ, the sedan, right? I mean, those were, even, I mean, when Baidu started they started the autonomous driving R&D in 2013. I think one of the first I got to ride on was 2017, maybe, at one of their first Baidu World events, which happened yesterday. They had their event yesterday, right? And we saw some.
I've been to a few of those.
Yeah. One of the famous ones that happened was Robin Lee got doused with a bottle of water when he was speaking. I don't know if you remember that or not.
And I do.
Yeah, and it's like, what's your problem? That became a meme in China back in the days.
Well, remember Baidu World? They had that weird shaped RoboTaxi, probably in 21 or 22 during COVID. They launched that, and so you and I have tried out most, if not all, of the major services: Pony, WeRide, AutoX at that time, Deep Route, QCraft. We've tried them all, and so the West is again finally catching up and getting a better understanding that these companies are much closer than realized to their Western competitors.
And we're seeing so recently, I think there's been an extra level of ramp in terms of these going global, right? So Baidu, they talked about in Abu Dhabi and Dubai that they're launching this with the local partners. Baidu is launching in Switzerland, right, with the Postbus, right? That yellowish RoboTaxi. Whereas here, Waymo, I mean, you tweeted, right? They're expanding into your neighborhood.
And
New York. They just expanded in the Bay Area.
Now they're going to be on highways?
Highways, right? Freeways. And they're probably going to expand into additional airports. Even Austin.
So,
and Elon tweeted rookie numbers. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
with the fleet in different cities that Waymo had in the U.S.
So I should talk about my trip last week because it segues really well into what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
I was a speaker for the Florida Autonomous Vehicle Summit,
of all
FAV
places,
Summit.
Right?
And I'd met a former senator of Florida at a conference, Jeff Brandes, who has been hosting this event for the past 7 or 8 years. So he is a pioneer in Florida. And if you think about it, Florida is a great place to do pilots for autonomous vehicles because the weather is so predictable.
But I'm surprised that Florida is not like Phoenix, that they don't have like a city that's been doing what Phoenix has been doing.
I think they're trying to move in that direction, but we also have to remember before Governor DeSantis was elected, Florida was a fairly purple state. Now it's very red, and I don't know if autonomous vehicles are politicized in Florida, but that could be one of the reasons. The FAV summit has now expanded into eVTOL and UAV. So there were policy people, there were government and politicians, and I had a fireside with Riley Brennan, who's a venture capitalist in the mobility space, and I only talked a little bit about the China part. What I did talk a lot about, I think I talked a lot about, was how the U.S. or the West can be more competitive. Because I didn't want to dwell on the fact that, the Chinese trying to correct bad takes about the Chinese not being competitive, subsidies, that's settled. Now it's all about looking ahead and seeing how the U.S. companies or the Western companies can compete.
And the question is how Waymo can be as global as maybe a Baidu or WeRide or Pony, because they're expanding in multiple markets. I think at this point, I know that Waymo is trying to be in London, right? Or they are already in London.
They're collecting data.
Data, right? Can a Waymo be in China? Or do they need to be in China? Should they be in China?
So that's the open question about Tesla too, right? Because if Tesla is to become an $8 trillion company, how much does China play a role in that valuation?
Huge, right? FSD.
Exactly.
When is that approval?
Well, he said Q1 of 26, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, and then at the same time, you have not only the traditional RoboTaxi companies, you have XPengs, right? Who are trying to kind of compete or add into the picture. You have the Didis, right? And then here you have the Ubers and the Lyft, which are working with the Chinese robotaxi companies outside of China.
We can say that the ride-hailing companies, the Western ride-hailing companies, namely Uber and Lyft, they're being non-political. They're the picks and shovel people. We're going to partner with everybody.
And at the same time, right, the LiDAR companies, Hesai, they're supplying the LiDARs to one of the biggest robotaxi companies in the U.S.
Here's the irony a little bit, Lei, because let's give a little bit of a history lesson. When Didi IPO'd, they were really aggressive on partnerships outside of China. And because the CEO and the COO kind of IPO'd when they shouldn't have, they were forced to abandon international operations and focus solely on the China market. So if that hadn't happened, DD might be much, much more international. Well, I won't say might. They would be much more international than they are now.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
And they just signed something.
They had acquired. Go ahead.
DD Autonomous Driving signed something in UAE as well. Entering that market. It seems to be that region is, I think Baidu is doing some demos at the final leg of the Formula One race, which is at the Abu Dhabi, right? Yeah, and then
the one thing that's interesting, Lei, is that Waymo, because Detroit, you know this, it snows in the winter, so it seems Baidu is in Beijing, but it doesn't snow in Beijing like it does in Michigan.
Yeah,
and so
that would be interesting. Like if it runs in snowy conditions and what happens.
When will Baidu, Pony, or WeRide be in Harbin, Shenyang, those cities? That'll be like, okay, the Chinese are now going into four-season cities as well. London, it doesn't snow as much either. So, but Waymo with New York and Detroit, I think is very telling. It seems like they're trying to set the pace now globally because they've made a lot of announcements and they're much more externally marketing focused now. So it looks like they're really, really trying to ramp up commercialization efforts. And then on the backs of all these Waymo announcements, you hear the Neuro announcement. You see WeRide and Pony do the secondary listing in Hong Kong. So I'd mentioned this earlier, or I'd mentioned this in the newsletter this week, that we're seeing this autonomous vehicle renaissance. And I think this time it's going to stick because people are now sharpening their pencil, investing heavily. And I think it pulled back a lot because of the Uber ATG fatal accident, the Cruise stuff, but now we're starting to see it. And so, anyways, I don't have anything else, Lei. Do you?
No, I don't have anything else either.
Okay, so there is one question. SPX Nomad 2187. First of all, thanks for joining us again, man. Always appreciate your support. Happy Friday, guys. Can you confirm, expand on the Ion UT Bass swap time at 88 seconds? Is that real world? How is it much faster than NIO swap time, and what are the implications are when Chaco network expands?
So we can't say for sure because we have not personally, this is still fresh. Just happened a few days ago, right? We do know they now have over 800 Chaco swap stations throughout China. And the process is definitely faster given what they've communicated and what's been shown on the internet. I think they officially is 99 seconds, where NIO is anywhere between 3.5, 4 minutes. We've done quite a few of those, right? It's within 4 minutes, definitely. So it's faster, but at the same time, I think the vehicle, the complexity that goes into these swapping is a bit different. And then when you talk about the fleets and the smaller vehicles, what goes into ensuring safety, what goes into monitoring, you give and take. That's probably the reason why you could do it faster. But I don't think I don't want to say one is necessarily better than the other. Right?
Under 2 minutes is pretty significant.
It's fast. And it's a 500 kilometer range car, not small range. So,
but the other thing too is the last thing I'll say is, how many different types of swapping systems can work outside of China? Not many. There's too much investment involved. So
long term, so CATL, I believe, and NIO are both part of this consortium that are actually, I think that it's being worked out or this being discussed the national standard, right?
With Geely too. So
for quite a few years now. So can we think of one standard across different brands? First of all, Firefly, right? There's been some chatter about Firefly. The current generation of Firefly, current model, does not work on a Chaco swap. Well, the next generation, I think based on the March collaboration announcement between NIO and CATL, that was the plan, which we won't see until next year or the year after. Those are some things to watch out for.
We should also note that I think this week was the first time NIO closed a swapping station. It was in Norway, I want to say, or it was in a European country. Yeah, they closed a swapping station. So, they're course correcting, and I think that's important because maybe there's not enough capacity or supply to support that swapping station in that European. I want to say it's Norway, but I could be wrong. Anyways, thanks for your question, and I think we should be okay next week. But
next week I know you'll be on the road, so Friday you'll be back, or because I know the auto.
No, I leave Friday, but let me figure this out, and then I'll we'll try to do a better job of communicating earlier in the week when the show is going to be, so that the live folks, the folks that want to
so I'm good. Live. I'm good until the end of the year, Friday mornings. So
we got one more. Okay, so SSJJ005. Man, many people not noticing that the NIO has surpassed XPeng in monthly delivery volume, specifically in China. So
Yeah, I mean, NIO was due, right? We said many times NIO was due, and I mean, think about this. They can be doing 30,000 a month just with two models, the
yes,
ES8 and the Envoy L90. At least that was kind of their plan. We could potentially see that. For the longest time, they couldn't get over 30,000 units.
right.
And I mean, they say it's the accumulation of 10 years of R&D and the right timing. These products that are come out, the consumer habits have changed, right? They've gone through the E-revs. And that's what Li Auto is facing while they transition to the BEVs. And
As more E-revs hit the market.
yeah, so you could call it the right time at the right place at the location, or you could call it the accumulation of 10 years. But it's worked out. Again, I stress at this point. I think just a few days ago, Li Bin was still communicating that it's going to be difficult, but their goal remains to be breaking even by the end.
And I think I think it's cool to talk about one outselling another, but ultimately, both of those companies need to grow faster than the market is growing. Because is it really growth if you're growing faster than you have historically, but you're still short of matching growth in the market? I think those are two different things that need to be looked at. But yeah, so everyone, thank you for joining us, and have a good weekend. We will talk with you hopefully next week. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.